Roger, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. I guess let's start at the beginning. So, what made you want to become a voice actor? Where did that journey start for you?
Well, I started, of course, as a kid doing voices and imitations of things. I started getting into puppetry when I was about 4 years old, and of course, you have to come up with voices for your different for the different characters and so forth. I just was crazy about puppetry. There was a TV show on here at the time, the Jimmy Dean show. I don't know if you know him. He was a country performer, and he had Jimmy Dean sausages, and he had a puppet on his show, Ralph the dog, done by a young unknown puppeteer named Jim Henson. And of course, Jim Henson started taking off after that. And we had, there was Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop, her puppet. A guy named Paul Winchell had his Knucklehead Mahoney puppet. Paul Winchell is better known nowadays as the voice of Tigger in the original the Disney films. But he did a lot of voices in cartoons and stuff. Anyway, I started doing that. I grew up in the South, in Georgia, which started its life as a prison colony for Scottish prisoners. And I just imitated people on TV, imitated things around me, people and sounds and animals and stuff. So my Southern accent kind of flattened out. Anyway, this is a long answer. Anyway, I, of course, in time, I became involved in writing and performing sketches in primary school, and then I studied acting. I was on track to become an actor, and I had to give that up for various reasons. I graduated with acting studies, worked in the local theater, and I was on track to go to NYU, but I had to give that up to the drama department of NYU and New York University. And I became a commercial artist because I also do artwork. And I kept my hand in. I sort of taught myself engineering by doing recordings and stuff at home, story tapes for friends and their kids and so forth. And I learned how to, effects with recording equipment, taught myself engineering, as I say. I'm not a very good engineer, but it worked. And then one day at work, I was working for a large merchandising firm. I did work for many years designing T-shirts, mostly posters for the music industry. I've done T-shirts of the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Public Enemy, Pee Wee Herman, and one day at work, someone said they just heard this interview. Someone who opened a school in the San Francisco Bay Area to teach voice work. And I had thought about becoming, finding an agent and trying to get some work in animation or something, because I love film, love animation, cartoons. Of course, just have been a rabid film fan ever since I was quite small. And so I went to this introductory lecture, and I thought, this is it. Hey. So I signed up for every class I could get to learn the various different kinds of voice disciplines, different kinds of voice work, from promo to animation to advertising, narration, so forth and so on, and to learn the business. Because, as I say, I had thought of getting an agent, but I didn't know how to get an agent. I didn't know how to do a demo tape. I didn't know what to do, how to submit it, and so forth. And in the course of taking these classes, I met my first agent, and fortunately got a better agent. And then with the better agent, things started to move. So uh, that's how I got into voice acting.
So when you need to create a new character and you need to develop them in your head, how does that process work for you?
Well, most of the time you have to come up with something just on the fly for your audition or whatever, and the better prepared you are, I mean, just within what you have within yourself, and there's no guarantee that whatever you do. I mean, I've literally sat and listened in a class and listened to writers, advertising writers, say, "Okay, I'll give you an idea of this is how I pick people. Okay, this guy's voice sounds like my uncle, and I hate my uncle, so let's go to the next voice." There's nothing you can do about that, you know. You can't do anything. So you just do the best you can. But really, what you have to take your cue from is the writing, what's in the script, and that is everything. Uh, uh, like with Scream, it was all there in the audition script, which was the opening scene of the first film. It was brilliant writing, and it was just all right there. It's a game of in Scream. It was you see this guy. It's like a game of cat and mouse, and he can't just come on as some kind of horrible person. He's got to be interesting. He's got to be a little bit, he's got to sound kind of interesting, be a little sexy. Keep her on the phone. Get her interested. Oh, you're gonna watch a movie? I only make popcorns when I'm gonna watch a movie. Popcorns? No, I only make popcorn when I'm gonna watch a movie. And he's got to play with her, and then the it turns, and the cat puts his paw down on the mouse's tail with that. I want to know who I'm looking at. What did you say? I said I want to know who I'm talking to. That's not what you said. Why? What did you think I said? So it's got to be the same voice that's kept her hooked, interested, but it just darkens when, as I say, the cat put his paw down. And that's, you get your audition scripts, and you just have to, you go by the direction they give you. And a lot of times I'll find they'll give you a certain direction. They try to be very specific. And then you hear what they finally pick, and it's nothing like what they said they wanted. So it's all, you just have to do your best and let the dice fly high, as Caesar said.
Absolutely. So in the beginning, you started off doing a lot of voices for characters in video games, and then transitioned into TV shows, movies, etc. Was that a conscious decision to start with video games and move into TV and movie? And the other question I have was, what would your preference be? Which one do you like best?
Oh, I love it all. I love it all. It's all different. It's all fun. I mean, video games are fantastic for character work. Of course, as I said, I love animation. I've loved cartoons my whole life. Not all animation doesn't mean it's just for kids, of course, as fans of anime know. But a lot of people think, oh, animation has cartoons. Let's take the kids. What is this guy Akira doing here? Oh my God! Cover up the kids' eyes, please. But no, I like it all. Animation, film, television, video games have given me an opportunity to do a lot of different things. One of the few games I'm actually the lead hero on was a British game called Gap, and that was a lot of fun. I play Ramos Sabria, the captain of his ship, as I do my absolutely awful Ronald Colman imitation. Actually, it's not too bad. They liked it. They liked it, so it worked after all, eh?
I'm sure they did. Who wouldn't? So when you're creating a voice for a video game character, does that allow you a lot more character development? Do you get more time to build on that character as opposed to TV and film characters?
Um, no, it's all working with the directors, producer, writers. That's first of all, you got to get your foot in the door, and there must be something they like about your audition. Then once you're in, you work with them to find what they want, to sort of establish. They may call you in because they're interested. In the process of audition, you have the initial audition, which is usually you record something at home or at your agent's office, and they send it in. And a lot of times, they will have a callback, not so much in video games as in animation, but they'll have a callback where you come in and actually work with the director or writer. And just it's sort of to see how they feel about you. Do they think you'll be easy to work with? And try to establish some things about the character. And it can change things. Like, for example, I don't know how familiar you are with the Powerpuff Girls and the character I do on the show, Mojo Jojo.
Yep, I know old Mojo.
Because the initial direction for Mojo Jojo was a sort of extremely angry Peter Lorre. The actor Peter Lorre from Casablanca, The Maltese Falcon. But there was another character at the time that was a lot like that, Ren Hoek of Ren and Stimpy. So I got the callback on that, and it was in the callback, not in the initial audition, that Craig McCracken said to me when I was on mic and he was in the booth. He said, "Well, what would it be like if you put sort of a samurai spin on it?" So of course I thought of the great Toshiro Mifune. And he said, "What do you mean something like this, maybe?" And he said, "Yeah." So that's how Mojo came about. It was not from the initial audition, but from the callback. So that's what you work with the people. I mean, a good producer, director, writer will work with you. Some people that just, if you don't do exactly what they have in their mind or whatever, they just won't pick you or move on to the next thing. They don't work the process, as it were.
Right, so I guess it's like any other job, really. If you have the support from the director or the writers or whoever you need that support from, you're going to give them something that they want, right?
They obviously have some kind of vision of what they want, and they don't necessarily have it nailed down. Or if you bring something that's a surprise, they may like that so much. That's how I ended up doing the Scream films. Was, initially they were filming the first film in Santa Rosa, California, just north of the San Francisco Bay, where Hitchcock incidentally filmed Shadow of a Doubt, another serial killer movie. Great picture. And Drew Barrymore, instead of having a script person feed her the lines, wanted to have an actor to play the scene. So they cast in the Bay Area for somebody just to do this scene with her, and then they were going to dub it all later in Los Angeles. But Wes Craven and the producer, Marianne Magdalena, liked what I was doing so much, they decided to just keep me. And that's how I became Ghostface.
So I guess that kind of served as your audition. Did you ever go through an official audition process for the role then?
Oh, yes. As I say, it was they auditioned in the Bay Area. I went into the casting agency. They recorded. There were a lot of us there. I heard some people saying, "Oh, my agent says they're looking for the new Freddy Krueger." And I'm reading the script. This is not Freddy Krueger. This is very, very subtle stuff. This is this guy who's got to interest her. He's got to be, like I say, kind of sexy, interesting, playful. But then he turns. So it's all in the writing. It was right there in the scene. So you play the scene. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I have written it. To quote from the great Will.
Great quote. So when you came up with the voice for Ghostface, did you take any inspiration from characters you've heard over the years, or anybody you knew in your personal life, in your real life, or was it something you created completely from scratch?
Well, I've been in different situations, classes, auditions, and stuff and so forth, and I know the reaction I would get from various women who would be in the room or whatever, and I know I tried different voices, different things for different things. Usually, when you do something kind of like that, a little bit of gravel to it, a little undone. They kind of like that, and they like confidence. I've actually had someone say, "I like that character more than I like you." But it's sort of like, that's why, even as a voice actor, you have to keep practicing, trying out things. Watching a film for me is not just entertainment, it's study, not just because I enjoy film as study, but it's for my work. So you try different characters, try to remember different jokes or lines that you can use in other situations. My wife and I we were in the audience to see was it King? When Charles becomes king, what number is he going to be? Which Charles is he? Charles the Third or Charles the Fourth? Anyway, it was the play about King Charles with Tim Pigott Smith playing King Charles. We were in the audience in London to see this, and there was a guy behind me sneezing, and of course I have to imitate or try things to set them down. So this guy's sneeze was very unusual, and I'm trying very quietly to imitate this, to set it down in my memory. And my wife's going, "What are you doing?" It's this guy behind us. Because he was sneezing like, I hope this won't blow out your mic, but it was like, it sounded more like a dog barking. Yes, exactly. And this guy behind me was sneezing like that. And I'm trying to imitate him sitting in the audience before the play started, but to set it down in my memory. And so you have to keep doing these things, practicing, going around. If you're working on an accent or trying to set it down, you just do it, repeat it. It's like wax on, wax off. Keep exercising that muscle. There was a great voice actor who a lot of whose technique was basically doing imitation of actors from old films. His name was Paul Frees, and he did on-camera work as well. But do you know Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Yeah.
The Rocky and Bullwinkle show? Well, he did Boris Badenov, was one of his main voices. And his Boris Badenov, as opposed to Boris Godunov, was basically an imitation of the actor Akim Tamirov, who worked with Orson Welles and was in a lot of comedies. And he did this terrible sort of accent. It was his imitation of Akim Tamirov. And in the Dudley Do-Right cartoons on Bullwinkle, he did Inspector Fenwick. And his Fenwick was an imitation of a character actor named Eric Blore, who appeared in a lot of films. He was in Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers movies. He was in Preston Sturges films.
And he had this thought. He was always the sort of butler that, was always a bit sort of fey, as it were. And he was, I say, Do-Right, Snidely Whiplash is terrorizing the town. You have to do something about this.
And then his ape on George of the Jungle was a straight Ronald Coleman. George Ursula is not here. She is out in the jungle. You'd have to go and rescue her. And he was, do you have the Pillsbury Doughboy there? He was the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah.
And and he was on camera in a lot of films like A Place in the Sun. He was in Earth versus the Flying Saucers, The War of the Worlds from the George Powell production in the 50s. But a lot of his technique was doing imitations of old movie actors. And it's a legitimate technique. And in a way, the worse the imitation you do, not that his imitations were bad, but the worse the imitation you do, the more there is of you in it, which makes it even more yours. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So you've been playing the character now for over 10 years. Have you ever been tempted to put more of yourself into the character, or tailor it more towards the actors who are playing the killer in the film? Or have you tried to keep it completely original and its own thing?
Well, I can tell you that in none of the films have I ever known who the killer was. I never got a whole script. I only got the script for the scenes I was doing. So I never knew in any of the films who the killers were.
That's incredible. I guess that's a great way to keep the tension when you're filming your scenes together. So I guess that kind of answers my question in terms of Ghostface being their own thing. I guess they kind of have to be, right?
Well, it kind of does, but from film to film, I try to add little differences in just tone or pacing or color, because they are different people. But sort of the whole point is
that essentially Ghostface is everyone and anyone. Could be you. Ghostface is something within each one of us, hiding behind that mask, because we all know, I think, the mask to hide behind. We can do almost anything. As Goethe said, I firmly believe that with the slightest shift in my character, there is no crime I could not commit.
So Ghostface is everyone. That's one of the reasons I like the fourth. The first is probably my favorite of the bunch, but I like the fourth film because of the whole social media angle. Because for a lot of people, social media is a mask they hide behind. And they'll do all kinds of incredible and stupid things. I mean, making death threats against people, and I mean, it's a mask.
Oh, absolutely. I think sometimes the real world is a lot scarier than anything we see on film. It's interesting you mentioned Scream 4. One of the last things I watched today preparing for our chat was a clip from Scream 4. And you can definitely tell how the killers evolved over time. I know it was a long time in between Scream 3 and Scream 4, but the killer definitely had a different feeling about them. They felt proud when they were talking to Sidney about what they've done.
Yes, as I say, he has to be different and yet the same, because it's supposed to be a voice box, but I can tell you
there is no voice box. I've seen engineers say, I can make anybody sound like that, but no, they can't. Thankfully.
But the voice box is a leveler, so it could be anybody, man, woman, anybody at all. So it's not either a male nor a female character. It's just something that's within us all.
And how did you feel transitioning the character over from the big screen to the TV show? I mean, what were the main differences for you during the production?
Well, the main difference is that for the films, I'm live on the set playing the scenes with the actor. I'm actually on the phone talking to them. Mic'd, of course, for better quality sound, but I am playing the scene live with the actors. So we get to play around, improvise, do some different things. But for the television series, it was all done in post. So I dubbed it in later.
Right. Well, I imagine that would have been a bit more difficult to build up that rapport or that tension with the actors you're working with for the scenes.
No. Again, just a different technique. I'm still reacting to what I'm seeing on the screen. I'm still playing off of them, only it's just not necessarily live. I mean, like for the films, we'd get some good takes in the can, and then we'd try throwing in some stuff. It was essentially my job to try and scare these people if I could. So I would improvise some lines, some of which made it into the movies. Like I think the first time I tried that was in number 2, where I'm talking to Randy, to Jamie Kennedy, and I said,
"Have you ever felt a knife slice through human flesh and scrape the bone beneath?"
I'm watching him on the monitor, the camera feed, and I see his eyes go big like saucers. And then Wes called, and Jamie said into the phone, "That was great. Do that again."
That's brilliant. I mean, you've been working with these guys for such a long time, through 4 films now. How do you still keep that tension alive during the scenes together? How do you keep that level of fear up after so long?
Well, it at the time, all the way through the 4 films, I didn't meet any of them except by accident. Wes and Marianne had a policy to keep me separate from them, so that they wouldn't have a face to associate with this. It's sort of like, you know, the magic of old radio theater. There's no monster as horrible as the one you create in your own mind. So then I made sure that the cast never saw me or didn't know who I was. So I never met any of them formally until after the 4 films were done. And now that we've been on the convention circuit, they know me. So it would be a completely different game if there were to be another film.
Sure. And as you brought it up, there was some news last year that there may be a new film in development. Can you tell us anything more about that?
I know nothing about it except what I've seen on Twitter, and I'm not counting any chickens. I'm not, things get announced and then they don't come about. So if it should come about, I certainly hope they remember me. But I know nothing about it at this point.
Well, I think they would be 100% bonkers not to invite you back to be in the new one.
Thank you very much, young man.
I still find that amazingly awesome, yet creepy as hell. But Roger, thank you very much. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Is there anything you would like to say to the guys and girls listening today?
If there are any directors, producers, writers out there, please hire me. I like to work. I like to exercise my craft. It's just like doing the things you do. And when people ask me, "What's your favorite character?" I say the next one, because you always, you keep moving, trying out different things. I just love what I do.
And do you have anything in the pipeline that we can look forward to?
Well, I am just finishing up an audio book by the British writer Colin Wilson that should be coming out in the next few weeks. We have some appearances coming up in at conventions, Alaska, Las Vegas, here and there, Chicago later in the year. It would be a lot of fun if there are any, to come over to the UK. We have family there.
Well, I think I speak for lots of people when I say it would be absolutely amazing to see you over here. Roger, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. I love talking animation, acting, writing, whatever.
I just like to talk. In fact, I'm so fascinating that I...
Oh, yeah, thanks. Give him a shilling to move on. And there we go.